What is up, Jeromes? It is Friday, so that means that you got your questions in on our YouTube community page, and we love you guys. So a little bit of Friday Jeromes Q&A. Let's get it fired up. First up, David Bryant. If the Vikings underperformed this coming year, and the Wolves decide to clean house, who would be the best head coach and GM candidates? Well, I mean, best in terms of anything goes. I would love a Thomas Dimitrov. Things haven't worked out in Atlanta, but I think that he is a bright personnel mind. I really love his attitude. Plus, he brings Scott Pioli with him, who has a long track record of success in this league. Plus, it brings a little bit of Patriot way in, so love to do that. And then, say it goes sideways again this year in Pittsburgh, like the Steelers parted ways of Mike Tomlin, give it to me, baby. That's right. Or PJ Fleck. No, I'm just kidding. But we know the more realistic output would be George Payton steps up to GM and just sort of Brutus E2's his longtime guy Rick Spielman, and then it's Kubiak and Capers. Kubiak and Capers pulling off the silent coup. Yeah. Next up, T-Rag. When the offseason ends, how do you feel if if Rhodes, Linval, and Elfline are still on the team? Anthony Harris was gone with Everson. Worst case scenario. I think that would certainly be the worst case scenario where I do like Linval Joseph. I don't like him at 10 plus million per year. Pat Elflein, Pat Elflein's going to be on the 9-man roster. It just is what it is. He's on his rookie deal, incumbent starter, blah blah blah. But if he gets beat out and blasted in preseason and in training camp, I don't want him on the 53 at all. Certainly don't want him starting. And Xavier Rhodes at full freight. No. But also, like we outlined in the video this week, the Vikings aren't under any deadlines. Like, his contract doesn't become guaranteed at any point in March, so they can just sort of sit. And if they need the 8.1 million in cap space, they can always know where it is. But yeah, it looks more and more likely that Anthony Harris is gone, which is just really unfortunate. And then also, I do think Everson will be back, although. If he has suitors in free agency, the Vikings obviously can't get in a bidding war because of the cap situation. So, I think that would be just a pretty unfortunate way to go overall. Austin Arias, in your opinion, who's the most overrated and underrated prospects in this year's draft? I don't see any completely overrated guys. Well, I guess Mekhi Becton a little bit, where you obviously love the athletic upside. It's certainly there, but projecting him as a top 5 pick, like to the Giants at 4, I don't necessarily see that. And mentioned this in the mock draft video from earlier in the week that it does sort of remind me of the hype that was around Jawan Taylor last year, where physical specimen at that right tackle spot for Florida. Some places that had him going as a top 10, top 5 pick, end up dropping in the second round. Now there was some underlying medical issues there, but I think that what happens is that if some respected names, people who certainly put in the work, they get a little bit of hyped on one player, then all of a sudden the rest of the draft Twitter, draft community gets on board, and then always gets hyped. Because I was thinking, if Daniel Jeremiah mocked a sure day 3, like late day 3, borderline UDFA guy into the first round of his next mock draft, if there would be just a major adjustment in the community. All of a sudden, this guy who's a borderline draft prospect, all of a sudden, well, I've always had him as a day 2 pick. Like, please, get out of here. That's just how it goes. I would say underrated. I think Bryce Hall from Virginia. Because you can make a case 2 years ago he was the best cornerback in college football. He had a very meh 2019 as well as injured. Plus, his injury is going to preclude him from doing most of the offseason stuff. So I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. Would certainly love if he ended up being a Viking. I guess Becton is my overrated one for right now. I wouldn't say Jordan Love is overrated or underrated. I think he's certainly a polarizing prospect. It's like a diet Josh Allen, where people either love him or hate him. Yeah, that's really about it. Minnesota Vikings, man, 28. Trevon Diggs available at 25. Will the Vikings be forced to get him and prevent future Diggs drama? I don't think that factors in at all. But if you're there at 25 and he's the top cornerback on your board and the top player on your board, absolutely go for it. You're just taking a great player at that point. Chris, who do you think is the most overrated player in the draft this year? Already answered that. Well, let me think a little bit more. It's a Becton. Probably Becton. Yeah, I mean, so other players, I think that's really about it. I don't think anyone is just getting massively overblown hype this year, which is kind of nice. What's the deal? I don't know whose contract ends next year, but if we don't draft a quarterback and don't extend Kirk Cousins, who do you want? Well, I mean, I guess you're just all in for Trevor Lawrence next year. Maybe he has a bad junior season. Maybe he falls like Justin Herbert. If he had came out last year, I mean, may have been vying for the number one overall pick. He could have been up there with Kyler for sure. But maybe Trevor Lawrence comes in and is just absolute ass, and he's bad this year. Or maybe, God forbid, knock on wood. I mean, there's an alien abduction or an injury thrown in there. But yeah, it will be all in Trevor Lawrence. Alex Clinton. Why do people in general forfeit long term security for short term satisfaction? I mean, just it's never too late for now. I mean, just that quick hit as a God, what is it? The bunny versus the squirrel. That old parable. But the bunny lives for today. The squirrel always saves and gets ready for winter. Then winter comes. The bunny has no food. Squirrel has all the food. That sort of thing. But I don't know. Just always save for a rainy day because it always gonna rain. Then. Why are DMV so slow? Lack of competent workers, bad software, no incentive to get better. The latter part also dwells into the reality of socialism. I mean, socialism, sure, to a degree, like a command economy is like, this is your job. There's no upward mobility, blah, blah, blah. I think that plays into the DMV too, because well, if you go to the DMVs that have been outsourced to private companies, where starting to see these pop up more and more, where they do the work of the DMV, except they are a private company. They are a little bit better, but just in terms of, I think it comes down to most governmental work where, there's no upper mobility. You're sort of locked into your job. Sure, you're unionized. You got great benefits and all this stuff. So you can't really move upwards. You can't really lose your job. The work is monotonous, as DMV tends to be. I mean, there's really no incentive for the person to, give full effort or be expedient, be efficient, really. So, I mean, that's just what happens. I don't think that's really, like some sort of political statement or a referendum on socialism, even though, I just think that if people aren't motivated, like you could have the most motivated person in the world. Like you could have someone who just goes out and gets it, like a Gary Vee, or just someone who just likes to go out and win the day. Have them work at the DMV, and within 2 years, it'll just be like downtrodden and be like every other DMV person. That's just what it is. I don't think that's again. I don't think that's a indictment on the people who work at the DMV. I mean, a job is a job, and you're making good money, and you're fine with that there. But that's just what happens when there's lack of incentives. Also, remember when Rick James was a thing? Well, Chappelle made Rick James a thing again. Biatch. Anders. Sorry, Charlie Murphy. I was having too much fun. Anders, if Washington hates take Tua, should the Vikings try to trade for Haskins? I mean, that'd be super interesting. If they go Tua at 2 and Haskins is all of a sudden available, I mean, what would it cost? I mean, it's sort of like the Josh Rosen situation last year, where in the entire time there were, and then Miami gave up what, third and a fourth for Rosen. It wasn't much, but I think that Haskins would be given away for a second round pick, maybe. Like they certainly aren't recruiting the number 15 overall pick for sure. Gamer 15. Should the Vikings give Dalvin Cook an extension if he holds out? No. I mean, I like Dalvin. I think he certainly is a big part of this offense. I mean, look at the Vikings' performance after he went out / was injured last year. But also, just given the nature of the running back position, I'm not ready to be forking out 8 figures a year to a running back. Not at this point. What is the deal? I asked last week. I said, what if Kirk gets corona? And you answered with the beer. I mean, the virus. What if he gets that? Well, if he gets coronavirus, then yeah, we're all screwed. Rob Banta. If you get COVID-19, can I have your channel? Well, here's the thing. Like, it has like a 98% cure rate if you contract it, especially if you're under 50. So I'll be all right. I'll just stay inside, make videos, no big deal. Billy Long, safe travels on the road, homie. Saving Virus 3, thank you. Big shout out to Billy Long, long time OG Jerome. Jabrisky, what are the odds the Vikings somehow extend Harris and Mack this offseason? Both of them on the parlay, I would say low. I would say 2.5%. Like, I think Mac is way more likely than Harris to resign at this point just because of the cost. But getting them both, I think it's extremely low. Blake Kettler, if Cousins has another good season, where does he rank among the all-time Vikings quarterbacks? Oh, also seen any good movies lately? Well, good movies wise, Six Underground on Netflix with Ryan Reynolds and the blonde French chick from Inglourious Bastards. It's really good. If you want just a mindless action flick that you don't have to follow the plot and you can just sort of have on the background while you're doing work or something, it's really good. Like it's funny, it's got great action scenes, and it's just good, like mindless, empty calorie popcorn movie. It's great. Because that's another very good season. Right now, all time great quarterbacks for the Vikings. I'll put Tarkenton 1, Dante 2, or Dante or Tommy Kramer 2. I mean, Tommy Kramer had more longevity, except Dante had higher highs. Do you put Favre up there? Do you put? Do you put? I mean, I guess you'd have to, wouldn't you? Then we put Joe Cap up there. Sure, he only had one really great year. Yeah, I guess you put him like 3, 4, somewhere up in there. Connor Keck. When will we clear up cap space since we haven't cut anyone yet? Well, they can clear up a lot of space. The question is, will they need it, right? So you could cut Xavier, $8 million there. You cut Linval, a bunch of money there. You do some of Reef, restructure, cut, whatever. There's a lot of money there, but then they'd have to be putting the money towards something. Otherwise they can just ride it out this year, take their lump, and then free up a ton of cap in 2021. Zach Hazley, so we do realistic Vikings free agent targets across all positions. Yeah, well, we can do realistic value options because I mean, like the Vikings are getting clowny, which should be awesome though. Jake Heck, what's your opinion on PFF? Do you listen to any of their podcasts? Yeah, love PFF. Our guys, Eric Eager, Mike Renner are over there doing great work. Do you listen to any of their podcasts? I don't. Well, here's some. I in general don't absorb any football or like local sports content. Content, audio, video, whatever, because I never want to be consciously or subconsciously accused of like lifting ideas or premises or anything like that. So I'll put in the work, do a little bit of research, or not much given this channel. But just in terms of listening to other stuff, I don't really do it. Marcus Hudge, I'm much more likely to be listening to hardcore history, the death rows of the Roman Republic for the 97,000th time than listen to sports. Marcus Hudgens. I know you haven't been keeping up with the XFL, but do you think it has potential to actually become a farm league? Also, what's your favorite form of media entertainment? I think it could have a possibility where the NFL obviously is looking for a farm system, but they just don't want to pay for it. So when the AAF, where the NFL was sharing TV partners, they're running some games on NFL Network where they're doing the least possible amount of work and at the least cost to them to try and help out the AAF. I think I eventually could see something like that with the XFL, where the level of play, I mean, it certainly hasn't been great, but you are starting to see some stars emerge. I think some of the rule changes are going to eventually be adopted by the NFL. I think the extra point is intriguing. I think the kickoff is probably going to be in the NFL within 2 to 3 years. But yeah, I think that there is an appetite for spring football. I think it's something that probably won't have like a passion following just because it is a lower level of competition, but just something that is there, something that people can gamble on, something that you can have on the background while doing some other stuff. I think that's important. Also, what's your favorite form of media entertainment? Right now, I'd say audiobooks, or just like audiobooks, podcasts in general. I really like long form conversations. Love the Rogan podcast, love the Jocko podcast. I think that is the future, because whether you're working out, whether you're just doing some work, whether doing cleaning the house, doing some mindless task, you can listen, throw one of those on and get educated, and it's something that's not as encompassing as like watching a video or watching TV or watching a movie or something like that. Just I just love doing that. Next up, Eric Hansen. Which non-Hall of Famer, Hall of Fame Vikings player would you pluck out of his prime with a time machine to add to the current roster, and why? All right. Oh, this is an interesting one. So non-Hall of Famer. So it. Well, does Jarrett Allen count? He's technically not in the Hall of Fame yet. Yeah, baby, come on. So besides Jarrett Allen, Winfield Senior, that'd certainly be a good one. I mean, Kevin Williams technically isn't in the Hall of Fame yet either, and he's gonna be borderline. I'm trying to think. Matt Burke to play guard. I guess that would be good. Or Gary Zimmerman's in the Hall of Fame. Ronier's in the Hall of Fame, right? Yeah. Oh, you can go Jim Marshall. Obviously, he deserves to be in, but since he's not in at this point, I mean, certainly would take him on here. Quarterbacks wise, I mean, it's tough. I mean, Tarkin's in the Hall of Fame. Just for fun, how about peak Dante? I mean, you don't even care about the O-line. I mean, Dante was a 6 offensive lineman. That's how it works. Gage Sandin, Anthony Harris walks away in free agency. Do we sign someone or draft a rookie? I don't see them signing one, probably drafting. But a bonus is that the Vikings will likely get a third-round commensurate pick for Anthony Harris. Yeah. Torrey Hansen, would you move up for Javon Kinlaw? I mean, he really is a special player at a position of need, and I think that his trajectory is really trending upwards. But if you get into the teens for Kinlaw, late teens, maybe, but probably not more than that. Travis, if you had to predict a free agent quarterback landing with the Bears to compete with Trubisky, who would it be, and should you be worried about this hypothetical situation comes true? I think it's going to be Jameis. I know that they are technically in on the Andy Dalton trade sweepstakes, but I think Tampa is going to take a quarterback. I think they'll cut Jameis loose, or Teddy might end up in Tampa as well. They'll cut Jameis loose, and then he'll end up in the Windy City and throw 40 interceptions with that win. It's going to be great. Eric Normal, do you think the writing's on the wall for Zimmer? Is there apparent as Gary Kubiak? Yeah, I think it's really shaping up to be so. I know that Gary says that he doesn't want to be a head coach, but also, I mean, when you bring over 3 other guys with you, like their employment depends on you as well. So I think he may just take the head coaching job just out of respect and deference to his son and Dennison and Periani. Yeah, I think that's what's coming up. Mordecai. Stat reads 4 NFL teams have won their first Super Bowl since 2000. Ravens, Seahawks, Saints, and Eagles. That gives me optimism for the future of the Vikings, but I know we'll screw it up. Yeah, probably. E Productions. Do you think the Vikings should have kept Kyle Sluter? I do. I do think that the Vikings should have kept this young, plucky, great physical upside, whip strong arm bloodback, as opposed to Sean friggin' Mannion or Jake friggin' Browning. But of course, we know that Kirk Cousins, because he's been part of a bloodless coup in Washington, he didn't want any threat behind him at all. I mean, and that's been shown by the quarterbacks he's had behind him, like Trevor Siemian, Sean Mannion, Jake Browning, etc. Matt Deritis, do you think the Vikings should trade up and get a blue chip tackle and not draft Trevon Diggs, also Antoine Winfield Jr. in the third one time? Yeah, I think the Vikings, this is a great tackle class. If they can come away with one of the top 5 guys, it'd be phenomenal. And if Winfield Jr. gets to the bottom of the third, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, and that's it. Those are questions for the Friday Jeromes Q&A. Love you guys, and yeah, we're traveling this week, so hopefully we don't contract anything. You know what I mean? And we'll be back. But thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, even through the off season. For agency next week, let's hit that up, and then the draft, and let's go. Skull production value.